and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. It is the beginning of spooky month, and I thought, why not do a horror tag video? Now this one was started off by a channel called PUMKIN, which I actually saw Lisa Love's video, who did a kind of open tag, as did Pumpkin Witch. So I am going to tag a couple of people at the end, but this is started as an open tag, so if you do want to go for it, obviously go for it, and you know, do a video if you'd like. And it's 13 kind of horror movie related questions, and let's crack on, shall we? Okay, so the first question, and you have to apologise why I'm looking down at the phone while I am kind of going through these. I'll try and keep it out of frame. What is the first horror movie you ever watched, and how did it affect you? The first horror movie I probably ever watched was realistically one of the kind of the Universal monster movies, probably Dracula, I would expect. And you know, I remember watching that with kind of my grandparents. In actual fact, it didn't really scare me, but I have warm feelings with it because my grandparents have passed away, and those kind of movies actually remind me of my grandparents, as did the kind of the old Tarzan movies, is why I kind of still quite like them. So they didn't really ever scare me, to be honest. Maybe a tad, but you know, hiding behind the cushion, but I still watched it. But I actually have quite warm feelings towards them because, like I said, it actually reminds me of a simpler time and family members that are sadly no longer with me. What is my favourite horror movie franchise? Now, technically speaking, my favourite movie of all time is Fright Night, and I really like Fright Night Part 2. But I don't know if I would consider two movies to be really a franchise. I know there's actually 4 Fright Night movies, but to me a franchise is, I know technically that is a franchise, but to me a franchise is kind of like an ongoing thing, even though reboots will really do count as a franchise. And Evil Dead 2 is my second favourite film, although I don't really like the TV series, and I'm kind of ambivalent about Army of Darkness and the remake as well. So I'm actually going to go for the Conjuring movies, because I think they are well-made films. I find them all at least enjoyable. I was less keen on the kind of the third one, but I still kind of quite like some of the spin-offs as well. So I would say the Conjuring, if there's a Conjuring movies coming out, I am excited. I was excited to see the third movie, obviously, in 2021. Yeah, it wasn't as good, but I was genuinely looking forward to it. So I would say the Conjuring franchise is my favourite franchise, and I'd also say, it's a little bonus thing, a question it's not on this list, but the question I often get to see is, what's a good beginner horror movie? You know, and I'd say it's the Conjuring. You know, people always say see with gory ones, but that doesn't make sense to me, because if a beginner you want something relatively kind of well made and kind of easily to consume. So the Conjuring films, I think, are great movies for someone who doesn't watch a lot of horror movies to kind of get into that kind of genre. Anyway, moving on. The third question: what horror movie still scares you today? To be fair, this, you know, I might be accused of being like, oh, what a macho guy. I don't really get scared in films, to be honest with you. I never really have, and since I was a kid. But I will say there is one movie that certainly does scare me in a way, and that is Eden Lake, which is not a horror film about monsters or anything like that. It's about the worst kind of types of humanity, and humanity doing despicable things to cover up their own misdeeds. And what's scary about that is it's so believable. You can imagine this sort of thing happening, and the people, if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it for you, but what happens in that movie is like, you think, I can totally see that happening. And that is genuinely scary, because that's a position that people, I think, can legitimately find themselves in, and it turned out like it did in the movie. Maybe, you know, maybe slightly less fatal, but that genuinely kind of thing. Oh, do you know what? It's a real kind of like focus on cruelty, that film. Okay, what horror movies do you think are overhyped? I'm actually going to echo what Lisa Love says in her list, and that is slasher movies. I think slasher movies are terribly overhyped, and I think because they have kind of like horror characters, people kind of latch onto them. And this is only my opinion, and if you love slasher movies, more power to you, but this is my answer, so I'll say what I think. Yeah, so to me, they're just so samey. I find them incredibly repetitive, and occasionally you'll get, like, you know, one that kind of tries something different, but to me it's the same thing over and over and over. What horror movies do you think deserve more praise? If you are familiar with my channel, you know that I review mainly kind of B movies here. So many of the films that we review here are unsung gems, a lot of them. But a couple of ones will stand out, and one I always plug if I ever get a chance in something like this, and that is The Borderlands, which is a fantastic found footage movie that is genuinely creepy. Genuinely creepy. If you're in the States, it's going to be called Final Prayer, by the way, not Borderlands. So if you can't find the Borderlands, it's because it's called Final Prayer over there. I'd also have to say another found footage film which I think is underrated is one called Jerusalem, which is a very impressive found footage, low budget movie. And I'd also say if you want a slightly kind of higher profile one, it's 47 Meters Down, because that movie was so tense watching that film. I mean, it was just like, it was a masterclass in creating tension, if you ask me. And I feel it kind of gets, you know, every shark movie gets compared to Jaws, and Jaws is obviously such a high watermark, but I still feel 47 Meters Down was an incredible, incredible movie. Favourite horror show series? I suppose Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Guess Angel to a degree, but they're kind of like very light horror. So yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel. I would also say a more recent one called The Strain, which was about kind of a vampire kind of dealing with like a virus. That was very good. But an older one that probably not many people have heard of, there was an 80s series called, it was simply called Werewolf. It only ran for one season, and it's essentially like the Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk series, where we have a guy, you know, a drifter going from town to town, but he's actually kind of a werewolf. And I really, really liked that. And it's been released on DVD in France, which I intend to get at some point. I'm just waiting for going in price. Anyway, so favourite horror subgenre. I'm going to be very specific here because I have two ones that I adore. And that is haunted hospitals. I love paranormal films, I love ghost haunting movies, but if it takes place in a hospital, it has that added level of fear. I know there's been some really great examples of haunted hospitals. But I'd also say aquatic horror creature features. So aquatic creature features, sea monsters, sharks, crocodiles, things like that. I love monster movies, I love creature features, but aquatic creature features, that is the special sauce right there. Okay, favourite final girl. I don't really like final girl trope, to be honest with you. I don't like tropes in horror films, and I don't like this trope in a horror film. If I have to say one, it would be Ellen Ripley, which is the choice of the Pumpkin Witch, I believe. But only because I thought she was very capable character. I hate the fact that the vast majority of horror films feel they have to have this. It doesn't make sense to me. It should be whoever is the most likely to survive. But it always seems to be, you know, the Virginia girl. I hate it. Which leads me on to the next question. What is something you dislike about horror films? The bloody cliches, one of which being the final girl. I actually did a video about my top 10 cliches, so I won't kind of go through the whole lot here. But yeah, cliches that happen time and time again in horror films. And I have to be honest with you, horror in general tends to be one that does have a lot of the same kind of cliches over and over again. What is the saddest horror movie that has made you cry? Kind of like the same answer that I had with What Makes Me Afraid. I don't really cry on stuff, you know. I tend to bottle my emotions, maybe, by the sounds of it. But if I had to have an answer, I thought about it, it would probably be the original, like when I was a kid again, the Universal Frankenstein movie, because he was kind of tragic. He was a tragic character, you know. He was kind of like hunted by the villagers and stuff like that for really just being different, and that kind of, I remember it making me cry, making me sad, and I wanted him to be accepted and stuff like that. And we've seen reiterations of kind of this type of of kind of character through, you know, popular fiction. But I remember it making me very sad when I was younger. You know, and I, you know, kind of, why do people have to be like that? You know, that kind of stuff. Okay, where are we? Favourite foreign horror movie would have to be Brotherhood of the Wolf, which is a French movie directed by Christophe Gans. And I believe the French title is Le Pacte de Loups or something, I believe. I don't really speak very much French, so that's a very lavish kind of like period kind of werewolf movie to a degree. Had some good action in it as well, but I really like that movie. So yeah, Brotherhood of the Wolf is the English version of the name. Favourite horror movie that started as a book? This one is easy. Jaws. Peter Benchley wrote the original novel, which then was made into a movie by Steven Spielberg. The novel is a little different from the movie, but that wasn't the question. The book is renowned to be not as good as the film, but that wasn't the question. But yeah, it started off as a book, and I think Jaws is one of those movies that is a 10 out of 10. I think I asked, why don't you ever give 10 out of 10s? Jaws is a 10 out of 10, so there you go. The final question, question 13, and then I'll do some tags, is what horror movies are you looking forward to? Again, as I've said, we watch a lot of B movies here, so the movies I'm going to list are probably ones no one's ever heard of. But I don't tend to watch a lot of trailers, to be honest. I actually kind of like to know as little as possible about films prior to seeing them, because I like to kind of go into it completely blind. I only tend to watch kind of like trailers for like the Marvel films and things like that. I don't really watch trailers for other films, to be fair. But there are a few that I'm kind of looking forward to, and they could be rubbish because I don't know anything about them. But we have to say one called The Bog. Again, I kind of quite like the creature feature if it involves a kind of an aquatic kind of component, and the swamp monster is appealing, that sort of thing. Don't know what it's about, I just kind of quite like the sound of that. Amityville Moon, and I know there has been a plethora of Amityville kind of like movies that have tangentially kind of used that name, but goddamn is there some good poster art for this movie, and I'm excited just because it has some sweet ass poster art. There's also one called Daria, not the cartoon character, but yeah, kind of looks like a kind of demonic kind of creature feature movie. So actually those three movies I'm kind of really looking forward to. I have no idea what they're going to be like. I'm only basing on small little snippets of information. Right, so let's talk about some people who we're going to tag. As mentioned, I would say this is an open tag, so anyone who wants to do this, feel free, but I'm going to tag a few people. Number one, Screen Stars, Aaron. Obviously a big contributor to the channel. You've probably already seen Lisa Love's video, but consider yourself tagged. 101 Bronson, you know, a bit of an action movie fan by trade, but I think as it's October, let's hear about your horror movies. As to the same thing to JT at the movies, I'd be curious to see your answers for this one. APB Reviews, Adam Paul Beaumont, I would love to hear your kind of answers for this. Also Slayer Reviews, more of a kind of a Blu-ray kind of channel, but nonetheless I'd be curious to see what you've got to say on this one. Alan Scouser, he's like me, he likes to buy the kind of the low budget horror movies, which I do appreciate. I enjoy when kind of we have these kind of channels that kind of looks at just not always the mainstream channels and stuff like that. Bushman Blue, long time subscriber, and again I'll be curious to see what you have to say. And then finally Horror in Todge, obviously clearly a horror fan, so I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this tag video. So that is my answers. What did you think? Any disagreements there? Any kind of like revelations you may have thought? And thank you to Lisa for doing this, obviously this open tag, and obviously thank you to Pumpkin, which is starting the tag, and I will link her channel in the description box below. Go check it out. I've watched her video, it's actually quite good. Anyway, thanks for watching and bye for now.